Happy Baltimore Week. Thank you all for coming out to this event today. We need to start off by thanking the Orioles for helping us celebrate Baltimore Week and playing their game this evening. So if we're not Orioles fans yet, you'll be Orioles fans today, of course, because they're playing the wild card game up in Toronto. So make sure you're cheering on the O's. Oh, no, whoa. All right, so for those of you who haven't met me yet, my name is Shane Bryan. I'm the Assistant Director at SOURCE. And SOURCE is a Center for Community Engagement and Service Learning for the health professional schools of public health, medicine, and nursing here at Johns Hopkins University. This week we're celebrating Baltimore Week. It's our annual celebration where we introduce or reintroduce Baltimore to the folks on our campus through the lens of social justice. So I'm just going to announce a few upcoming events that we have for the remainder of the week. If you haven't registered for them, please be sure to add them to your calendar. Tomorrow we're hosting a panel discussion titled Community Involvement, Dispelling Myths and Providing Tips. That's going to be in Becton Dickinson, which is on the first floor, W1020 at 12 noon. On Thursday, we have two events happening. Both of them will be in the School of Nursing. The first one is in the Alumni Auditorium. The title of that event is The History and Institutions of Racism in Baltimore. And we're inviting 3 historians to campus, all of which together they have decades of experience researching and getting to know Baltimore. So they're going to come have a conversation on the different historical contexts and events that have happened throughout Baltimore's history and how that continues to affect race relations, policy, and other events today in Baltimore. Again, that's going to be in the School of Nursing Auditorium, room 140 at 12 noon on Thursday. On Thursday afternoon from 4 to 5:30 p.m. In the School of Nursing courtyard, we're hosting a group called Believe in Music. It's a youth group that focuses their work around music, and they advocate for the children, and they turn the children into advocates for their community by providing a platform to tell their stories through creative means. So be sure to come out and celebrate with these young musicians and future leaders in the School of Nursing courtyard at 4 on Thursday. On Friday afternoon, we'll be at the happy hour event in the student lounge. For those of you who bring a canned food item, you can trade that in for a drink of your choice. The canned food drive will continue through the 14th of October, so be sure to participate in that. And then finally, we have our Tri-School Day of Service on Saturday, October the 8th, and there are not many, but there are a few spots still left for those of you who haven't signed up yet and want to get involved on Saturday. Please check on our website to see which sites are still accepting participants, and we can get you registered for that. We'll leave from this school anywhere between 8 and 10 a.m. All right, so with that, I am extremely privileged today to introduce you all our guest of honor, Professor Dee Watkins, who's a native and continues to proudly reside in Baltimore. Dee is a columnist for Salon and has been featured and published in a number of media outlets, including NPR, The New York Times, The Guardian, Rolling Stones, and Baltimore Sun, CNN, and many others. He holds a master's degree in education from Johns Hopkins University and an MFA in creative writing from the University of Baltimore. He is the founder of the Be More Writers Project and has been the recipient of numerous awards, including Ford's Men of Courage and a BME Fellowship. He's the author of The Cook-Up, a Crack Rock Memoir, and The B-Side, Living and Dying While Black in America. Both of the books will be on sale after his presentation today during his book signing event. So without any further ado, I introduce you all to Dee. So please join me in welcoming.
Everybody good? Can you guys hear me in the back? Are we good back there? Happy Baltimore Week, all right? It's like 2 people in here from Baltimore. It's an extremely important city to me, the most important place in the world. And I didn't really know this. Like, I wasn't sure. Like, I've always said how committed I was to the city and how much I love the city, but it's never really been tested. No one has ever wanted me anywhere else until recently. You know, I've had some really great job opportunities. One was editor-in-chief for the magazine I write for now, but they wanted me in San Francisco. They were going to pay me too much money and give me too much privilege, and and it would have been great. Any writer would have dreamed of taking this spot, but I chose to stay here with you guys. The other position was at NYU, teaching creative writing, and I denied that too. So I'm here for the long haul, and for me, beyond my own personal career, beyond the things that are special to me, it's about the people. It's about people being able to see people from their neighborhoods grow up to accomplish great things, and creating that concept of theory, and keeping that wave going. So I want to talk a little bit, because when I first was getting my instructions to come here, I thought I would be talking about myself, but upstairs over lunch, Shane said, "No, it's not really about you. It's about it's about Johns Hopkins and what you do in the community, and touching on some of those issues on how we can all do better. But we can all do better, right? I like you guys. You guys are cool. And I've had events when I've spoken in front of rooms full of people, and nobody says anything, and then at the end, everybody says everything at the table. It's interesting. But so I went to Johns Hopkins University, but I could go back further than that. I was born in Johns Hopkins Hospital right next door. Went to Johns Hopkins University. My mom worked at Johns Hopkins for years. I'm a professor. I'm on staff at Johns Hopkins now. So I'm a part of this Hopkins community as much as, pretty much anybody in this room. But I'm also from East Baltimore. I grew up right down the street, and I can tell you with all of my confidence that people hate Johns Hopkins. They don't, and it has nothing to do with anybody in this room. Maybe some of you, no, just joking. It has nothing to do with anybody in this room. These are things that dated far beyond, you guys were even thought about being born. These things have been going on for hundreds of years, but there's always been a big disconnect between Johns Hopkins and the city of Baltimore, in the black community. And I say that, because we have these events and we have these conversations, but we don't acknowledge the problems. We come into these situations as if they don't exist. For a disclaimer, I know all about the School of Public Health. I know, I've worked with Dr. Leaf and some other amazing people here. And I know, a lot of you guys are doing great work in the community. I know some people at the School of Education, Dr. Eric Wrights, and some other people who are doing great things too. So, beyond the people I know, there's a lot of people in the Hopkins community who are doing great things. But it's not enough to fight against that history. And I think our generation coming up, us millennials, us 20 and 30-something year olds, we're responsible for taking the work that they do and achieving on a higher level. How do we get to that higher level? The first thing is acknowledging the problem. My grandmother, she used to say this. Not talking about Hopkins, but she used to say it, but it's a great analogy to what's going on. Saying yes to something is always saying no to something else. So I want you to think about, raise your hand if you're not from Baltimore. Raise your hand. I was joking when I said like two people. I said, so think about when you got that letter in the mail, when they told you were accepted. You're happy, right? You were like, oh my God, my third choice let me in. No, all jokes aside, you were happy, and you were excited and you were proud and your family was proud and you're moving to this new city to have these new experiences and to learn these new things. So there's a whole world of people with proximity to all of these institutions who are never going to get that letter. And when they think of Hopkins, they don't think about this amazing opportunity to study and learn and travel and better my life. They think about, well, this is the company who knew they weren't paying my mom a living wage for the last 30 years, to the point where people in dietary had to go on strike just to get $10 an hour. There's people who are saying, oh my God, my family lived in this neighborhood for 30, 40, 50 years. And they wiped our houses out and, replaced it with like a dog park or something. So it's like, it's a matter of perspective. It's where you're coming from. There's the oppressed, there's the oppressors, and then there's just the people who are passing by. So if we're going to really have a true conversation about the university or about the hospital or about these issues, we have to acknowledge all of the players. As a kid, I never thought I would go to Johns Hopkins University. It wasn't even like an option. When I was finishing grad school, I never thought I would be teaching there. It just didn't really feel like a place that I would go back to teach. But doing this work and the work I do in the community and the work I do with the university, I had to switch that position because I know I need to be there. Because I needed to do everything I could do in my power to help the people at the university understand the people in some of these communities where I come from. So we have to acknowledge all of the players, and we have to kind of start with the history. And it's interesting. Before I came here, we were having a conversation about the school spending money on researching why the unrest happened last year. Like people don't know. Like people don't really generally have an understanding of why. And you can spend that money on research, and you can spend that money on things that you already know the answers to publish books, to write articles, to create content. But it doesn't get to the root of the problem, and it doesn't really acknowledge the people who are caught up in those problems. And that's where the disconnect comes from. We saw what happened in Baltimore, and then, painfully we watched as none of the cops were charged with anything. So our city, Baltimore, and Baltimore Week, not too long ago, just told us that you can chase a person without saying why. You can put them in a position to have their neck broken and their voice box smashed. And nothing happens. To take it a step further, you can even have a group of people champion what you've done. The funny thing is those police officers who actually were charged for that crime that they didn't get convicted of, some of them were gloating. Some of them are wearing T-shirts that say 6-0, talking about the cases they won. And they're suing, they're suing. So, you're responsible for this young man's life. He dies. You brag about it. Your bosses tweet about it. Your friends celebrate. As if being a cop and having a badge makes you morally exempt. So that's the problem. What kind of society do we live in where a group of people can celebrate a murder and then take a victory lap and then sue? It's the same society that this university exists in. There's a whole group of people. And this isn't a knock on the school. This isn't an attack on anybody as a person. But there's whole groups of students and professors here. Professors I've worked with at Johns Hopkins who are part of the dehumanization of black people. You can celebrate murder. You can watch, the cop who choked Eric Gardner out, he just got like a $26,000 raise last year. Choked him out, broad daylight, on camera. High quality film. It's a good film, it's a good picture, it was clear. Audio and everything. He said, "I can't breathe." That guy he got a $26,000 raise last year. He made an extra $26,000. He was rewarded for that. What kind of society can these horrible things happen? And like, where does that come from? How do we get to this point? So if we're gonna be in the School of Public Health and we're gonna talk about Johns Hopkins and its role in the city, then we kind of have to start with this basic idea of how the dehumanization of black people is something that is baked into the fabric of American history. This goes way back before the Civil Rights Movement, and it's before Black Lives Matter, before the Civil Rights Movement, before Jim Crow. This goes all the way back to our interest into this country. I'm not going to start with the first, that first ship, those first set of slaves that landed in Virginia, but I'll start with Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was one of the greatest thinkers of his time. He was a president. He was a very, very respected person. He was somebody who people listened to. He wasn't a pedestrian. He was somebody. And he owned a lot of slaves. He had 300 up in Monticello in Virginia, and he wrote about them. He spent time with them, and he talked to them, and he wrote about them, and he put babies in them, and he fully indulged. And Thomas Jefferson said, I want to make sure I have this quote accurate. I don't want to misquote him. The Negro is lazy, dumb, and incapable of grief. Now, what does that do, right? The Negro is lazy and dumb and incapable of grief. That's the seed. He planted the seed that created this forest that we live in. He planted the seed. When you hear these nightmarish, these horrible stories about what went on during slavery, when you hear these things, that's that Thomas Jefferson way of thinking. This is how people were able to freely rape women. It wasn't a crime to rape a black woman. You see these lynchings where these crowds of people, they'll surround themselves. They'll surround themselves by a body hanging from a tree. They'll chop off their fingers. They'll chop off their private areas. They'll auction them off. They'll laugh. They'll drink. They'll smile. They'll put on their best clothes to see it. You can only do that if you don't see a person. If you think someone's incapable of grief, you can do anything to them. You don't have to feel bad about it. This is why these police officers can kill people. This is why institutions like Hopkins can wipe out whole neighborhoods. Whole neighborhoods where social fabric has been existing for generations and generations with no problem, because it's not people. They're not people, so it doesn't matter. So his way of thinking planted those seeds, and by planting those seeds, it created opportunities to oppress and deconstruct and dehumanize black people on every level. I'm reading this book, Medical Apartheid, right now. And I'm reading about this doctor, and and it's she's shaking her head like, he talking about J. Marion Sims. J. Marion Sims, and he was the father of modern gynecology. And he invented this tool, the tool that fellas don't know, but it's a tool that gynecologists use on women when they go to see the gynecologist, called like a vagina speculum. He invented that. He invented that by mangling the vaginas of dozens of black women without anesthesia. And he wrote the Negro woman is strong, tough. She doesn't even need anesthesia. You know, some died. He went down in history. He also, there was a lot of babies who were becoming infected because they were born in the stables, and they were getting something called neonatal tetanus. And he thought he can solve that by taking a shoe awl, which is like a nail, and beating a hole into their skulls. He killed a bunch of babies, but, you know, black people are incapable of grief, so you don't have to feel sorry for them. This is advancing science and medicine forward. Everybody wins. So it's that type of thinking that separates us. It's that type of thinking that separates the communities from the schools, and then obviously you have years of slaveries and lynchings and Jim Crows and all of these different things that add to that narrative. But it's that type of thinking that actually separates the people from the communities we want to service from the schools. So another thing that I want to touch on before we talk about what's going on right now is it wasn't just politicians like Thomas Jefferson or doctors like J. Marion Sims putting out these types of ideas. It was sociologists. There was this one guy, I forgot his name, right? But he said, this is how funny this era was. Anybody ever heard of drapetomania? Drapetomania is a condition that Negro slaves get when they escape from a plantation. Why would he escape? Is he out of his mind? He's crazy. No, he is crazy. He has drapetomania. You know, so it's like all of these different people were creating all of these different things up, and these are the things that we have to acknowledge before we really sit back and have this conversation. So I think if we're talking about the School of Public Health and what we really want to do, then we have to figure out different ways to infiltrate the community, but to come in as members. How do you become a part of that culture? Because I'm gonna save you stuff. It doesn't really work. It doesn't really work. You know, we've tried that for years, and you see the results. So if you're in this space and you're a part of it, how do you really make a difference? And a lot of people think that if you're not from a certain neighborhood, you're never gonna really have that opportunity to make a difference or to be effective. But that's not true. We all share this space together, and we all have things in common, and we're all capable of building. The work that I do with books only works because I acknowledge the people that I service. It's the only reason why it works. There's so many, some people think I'm like the only writer walking around from my neighborhood. No, it's not true. A bunch of people put books out. But it's about the people. Just because I'm from that place and I have a love for that place, it doesn't mean I can create a product that young people are going to get excited about. The reason why young people get excited about it, because I consider them, because I care about them. I understand that I'm a dinosaur to them. I listen to Jay-Z. They're like, who's Jay-Z? Is that Beyonce's dad? You know? So I asked, I talked to, and people in here are like, damn, these young kids they're not listening to Jay-Z. They're listening to Fetty Waps and and Young Thugs and all of these new guys. So I'm not from that generation, but at the same time, I want to see them do great. And I know that when I was coming up, the people who had the people who had an impact on my life and how it turned out were people who cared about the things that I cared about. People who took a general interest in me and wanted to help. I give a lot of talks about like beyond my books, but about like activism and engagement and all of these different things all over the country. And I always get hit with the same question. What can I do to help? I was somewhere in the Midwest. I think I was in Chicago. And it was like a similar setup. Like, you speaking in front of a crowd. Can you guys hear me without kneeling over like that? Okay. Yeah, so it was a similar setup, right? This feels so much better. It was a similar setup. It was a crowd, microphone right here, and this woman, she comes down on my right side, and she's waiting her turn, and she's twirling her hair. She says, well, I'm just a white woman from Seattle with a big heart. I can't do nothing to help. What can I do? And then she kept going, and she was talking about how she took some pictures in Ferguson that went viral, and she published them. And she took some pictures in Baltimore that went viral, and she published them. So I'm like, wow, you jump from tragedy to tragedy, huh? You just, you on a roll. And I said, well, let's look at it like this. Instead of you just taking pictures of these people while they're going through pain and selling them, maybe pull some of those kids aside and show them what an SLR is, teach them about aperture and f-stops and how to work those digital cameras. My man in the back like, yeah. It's simple. It doesn't even take that long. It takes a couple of minutes. And in that couple of minutes, you expose people to a reality that they never got, that they never was really going to get. When I was coming up in East Baltimore, these are things I do now. I didn't know a professor. I didn't know a professional writer. I didn't know a journalist. I didn't know a person who consulted Jada Pinkett on a film. I didn't know these people didn't exist. But now that I'm in the city and I'm there, it's giving different options to different people. So it's really, really easy. It's difficult to speak at a place like Harvard University or even like Johns Hopkins University. But I was at, I'm not dragging Hopkins. I was at Harvard, and it didn't happen here. You guys, I feel like the School of Public Health you guys have it together to a certain extent. We're gonna get it. You guys are gonna be great. You're gonna be great. But I'm at Harvard, and a dude stands up, and he's like, yo, I want to help. I want to help. He's like this stocky white guy with the tight Harvard shirt. And he's like, Black Lives Matter. I want to help. And I'm like, but then he said he doesn't know what to do again. And I said, my man, brother, you got into Harvard. How'd you get in here? Letters of recommendation. Phone calls, loans, God. You did all of these things to get you into this university, but you got in there. Because people want to do something, they do it. If you want a certain car or if you want to date a certain person, you're going to figure it out. You're going to do it. So don't say you want to help people unless you really want to help people. Because if not, you're just in the way. If you're that person in the crowd who has that same question, what can I do? You're in the way. Take your resources and just give them to somebody that has it figured out. Take it. So, that's one part of it. The second part is once we actually get a chance to acknowledge that we all can make a difference, because we can, we had to just figure out what's best for us and what we can do. So my thing is books. I love selling books. I think it's great. I love writing. I'm really into it. But the cool thing is we've donated now over 3,000 copies of one of those books, the one on the left, to high schools all over Baltimore City and in some other places too. Kids are reading them. They're getting excited about them. They're finding value in their own stories. They're telling their own stories, and they're becoming critical thinkers. That's my lane, and that's what I do. It's a little more complicated. It's like a four-step process. The first is developing that relationship with publishers, major publishers, so I can actually be able to fill the big orders when I get them. 2 is developing a writing style that works at Harvard and in the Baltimore City Public Schools. So got to get those words to collide. 3 is actually getting the books, raising money to be able to donate the books to schools. So I work with a bunch of different foundations and organizations. I've used my own money. We've used Kickstarters and GoFundMes, and we've been doing really well. Because I know that books are difficult. Like it's hard enough to get somebody to listen to your mixtape, let alone to get them to actually buy your book and read it. So I try to make sure we have enough resources available to donate the books to whatever schools want them. And I haven't had one bad school visit yet, you know? And that's the 4th part. The 4th part is if you teach these books, then I don't care where I'm at. And I've worked, I have a lot of jobs. I do teach. I am a journalist. I'm still on tour for the first book and the second one. I'm writing a lot of articles. I'm doing a lot. But I don't care. I will find time to make it into your classroom so I can be that person to show your students that there's a different way. And that's my part. I don't have everything figured out, but that's my way to make change. And I say that because a lot of times people get caught up in activism hierarchy. Who's doing what in the city, who is popular, whose program is what. And for me, it's not about that. It's about me finding my lane, driving down the middle of it and dunking it, right? I don't really need to build connections and affiliations with all of these massive infrastructures of nothingness. I don't have to be a part of the nonprofit joke. If you want to invest in something that I'm doing, that's great. If not, that's great too. But if I'm working with people and I'm getting my products to people and I'm making that difference, that's good enough for me. And I think anybody can do that. I know another person that does it with nutrition. Right? She teaches people how to eat clean. And she has a husband that teaches people how to work out so they're like a team. You know, he shows you how to get the abs and she shows you how to eat to keep them. I'm not into nutrition, you know, but there's people all over Baltimore City who are doing similar work in a positive way. And it's making a difference. There's a guy right out here on Rose Street named Mr. Cleve. I don't even think he doesn't get funding from anybody. But when kids come home from jail, he helps them get an ID, and he helps them get in a position to go to some type of trade school. Perfect. You know, college isn't for everybody. All of your friends who are like electricians and our friends who are electricians and plumbers are making more than all of us academic types. By taxing us, right? So he's making a difference. He's not in the newspapers. He's not out there trying to figure out anything slick or outside of the box. He's doing his job. So for me, acknowledging the problems that exist, learning about the history. I only had 40 minutes, so I can't go into everything. I just wanted to give I gave a very, very, very general idea of where that divide comes from, but I will encourage everyone to read Medical Apartheid. Medical Apartheid is something that Halloween's coming up, and it'll scare you. The only difference is that it's real. It's real. So acknowledging that history and where some of these problems come from, and then figuring out what you can do to be part of the solution. I don't speak on, I really, I'm not gonna say I don't, but I've stopped going to like panels and joining people's panels because it just becomes a contest of people who just yell out stats. Everybody knows the stats. We get it. A simple Google search will tell you that 97% of people in this city who are born in poverty die in poverty. That's easy. That's easy. But the hard thing is, what can you do to change that? How can you get that number down to 80 or to 70 or to 60? How can you make social mobility a real thing? How can you do that? If more of us start to think like that, then we'll all get closer to seeing the city in the way we want to see it. We just got to get over the funny business, the activism checklist, the panel, the protests, All of these things might mean something to somebody, but I just like to think about solutions. And I don't really think that not being active works. I think strategic planning is key. But I do think that I think everybody is capable of doing something. Even if you help out one person, if you know, all of these things you learn while you're in college, you're in the School of Public Health, Hopkins is a research-based institution, you'll know all the 8-syllable words. But if you can transform those words into a language that one of these people up and down the street can understand, and you can inspire them, and you can help them, then you've done your job. Anybody have any questions? So he's right on the corner. I don't have his number, but he's on the corner of Ashland Avenue and Rose. Them 2 houses on the corner, both of them his. He's probably sitting outside right now. But you know, he's doing work. Like he's doing great work. One of the women. So he calls it like a homeless shelter for teenagers. One of the women was coming. She was a homeless teenager with a baby. She's like, she works with like the Department of Justice now. And she came through his house doing like defense on some, like, I don't know if it's what it's like. I don't know about computers. Like A+, not A+ certification in network, but like the security element of it. And she got hooked up with that program through him. And you know, now she has a whole different, she experienced social mobility. She's living the American dream.
So how much of a problem is it that, like, it seems like a lot of the nonprofits that get funding aren't run by and aren't like directly accountable to people from the communities that they serve?
So that's kind of goes back to that was a great question, and it goes back to what we were kind of saying earlier about this whole not just the idea of representation, but just the whole idea of acknowledging the problems that exist. It's a game. Somebody's out here writing the grant right now, and they know they're not sharing that money with nobody. They writing the grant right now, and they know, okay, yeah, I got the grant coming in for the $15,000. Cool. I'm gonna dump $500 into the program. I'm gonna take the $1,450 and buy myself some button-up shirts and take the family on a cruise to like something, you know, like one of them stupid cruise ships. Like somebody's out here right now doing that. So it's like if we not acknowledging that, and if we not even challenging the people with the biggest mouths, then we're part of the problem too. I don't know the grant world like that. I've been in those spaces, and you know, I'm gonna be 100% honest. I'm not good at kissing up to the people who signs the checks. Like, I'm just not good at it. So I don't really know how to function in those spaces. So I don't go to that stuff. I've been to like, this person runs this foundation and that foundation, and people in there saying, oh yeah, well she runs the foundation and she's like my mother. Like, no, I got a mother. You know, so I don't know that world, but I will hope that if you were going to be a part of that world, you would just enter it with a good heart and the intent on helping out children.
Hi, thanks for talking. This is maybe kind of related to that, but I guess I'm just thinking, like, I was a teacher, I worked with, you know, high school kids in Chicago, and I really get what you're saying about doing something and teaching someone and being out there. But I'm thinking about places like Hopkins where there are institutions and they're trying to, you know, implement a policy, or they're having weeks like this where they're trying to bring people in and raise awareness. So I guess, do you kind of think that that is maybe well-intentioned but misdirected, or do you think that there is a place for that, or do you think that there's a way to do that that's more effective? Because I think that that is kind of an increasing thing that is trying to happen in response to recent events, and just what you think about it.
So for me, you know, I think that so there's certain like phrases we have to take out of our vocabulary. Like, there's no such thing as a day of service. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no such thing as a day. Like, if you can't make a difference in a day. You can't even make the type of change that I want to see. It's going to take like 250 years. I think black male life expectancy in Baltimore is like just like 58 or something. I don't know. There's a lot of, you know, there's diabetes and there's violence. There's a lot, but you can't do it in a day, you know. So I don't think they have bad intentions. I think they have good intentions. I think the problem is And I'm not even going to put it on the professors. I'm going to put it on students not taking it to the next level. You take what your professors give you, you accept it, you get your grade, and you go about your business. But it's like, how can you take these things to the next level? How can you make them bigger than what the university even has in mind? Because it's always up to the next generation to push it more forward. Like, I know, like, I've really, like, I've worked with young people, I work with people in prison. I know you're not gonna erase the ills of institutional racism, you know, with like a couple of meetings, a Michelle Pfeiffer movie. Like, you know, the danger, like, it doesn't work like that. It takes time and commitment, and it's life's work. So if you're not really in it for life, then it's, you know, like I said, it's better to go find somebody who is and help fund them. Because you just get in the way. Like, a day of service, so you're in the way, you know? You're in the way. Especially if that person can't reach out to you after that day's up. Was that too much?
Howdy, thank you. So I'm curious, recently, of course, Black Lives Matter movement and the use of a lot of this cell phone footage and stuff like that have brought an increased lens on police violence and the history of that violence in America. And I'm curious what, from your experience in Baltimore, are other institutions that could also use that lens on them?
You know, I think, you know, so I don't want to sound like I'm happy to say this, but you know, because I don't want to see people get hurt. No one wants to see anybody get hurt, but I'm glad more people are aware. But that's still not enough. So I can't even properly dissect the effectiveness, like how effective Black Lives Matter is. How effective is it? Because, you know, we just had like a bloody 2 weeks. You know? We had a bloody 2 weeks. And I'm not, so I don't work for them. So people like assume, like a lot of people assume like I'm an affiliate or like I'm a representative because of like the stuff I write about. No. I'm just a dude from East Baltimore. Like I'm not a part of any organization. Black Lives Matter is kind of like a black middle class reaction to pain. And they get upset when these things happen. They don't, you know, they don't internalize. They express themselves and they link up and they march and they rally and they do that. We don't do that where I'm from. And what we do isn't effective, and I don't know how effective that is. So I'm still trying to dissect that. What I do think we need here is just more people who've experienced success to share it with other people so they can show them the way. So many people get a good job or they go to college and finish and then they leave their neighborhood and they don't look back as if nobody else is there. So I would like to see more of that. And then I think like if it's like a ground up thing and it's people in the community inspiring other people in the community, then I think that would be like the most effective way, you know, because just showing the world that it happens, it's great that they know, but they still not doing nothing. Did that answer your question? Okay. What part did I miss?
I was just curious if there were other institutions, larger other groups in Baltimore outside of the police society.
They don't, I mean, they just don't, from my perspective, they just don't make it to us. I don't like, you know, I meet some people who are in these circles and, you know, like the dudes who had the marches against violence in the city. It's like, you know, certain neighborhoods they didn't march through. Some of them neighborhoods was pretty bad. You know, so it's like, and that's no knock on them and what they're trying to do because everybody has to do something. But these bigger institutions, they don't really make it to a lot of places in the city. So it's always going to be about what we can do for us. Social fabric in communities is important for success across the board. You know, it could be a white community, it could be Latin, whatever. You need people in the community who are doing things that other people can feed off of. That person will watch your kids so you can go to a job interview. That person to teach you how to tie a tie, right? That person show you how to shoot a jump shot, how to fill out a financial aid form. You need people around you in that network to help you thrive. And so I'm more into strengthening that. And then maybe if we make some leeway with that, then we'll also gain access to some of the bigger institutions. Or not, but either way, we won't need them because we're moving forward.
Hi, again. I'm from East Baltimore, and in '93, I moved to Atlanta for 22 years, and I decided to start a program called Heads Up, help educate, acclimate, and develop structure using positive principles for young men coming out of youth detention facility to walk in their future with their head up and not their hands cuffed. And I thought that was something I was supposed to do in Atlanta because I lived a very lucrative life in Atlanta. But I wasn't. I had to come back to Baltimore to do it. And now that I'm here, I don't know where to begin. I have my bylaws, my incorporation, the mission statement and everything. So where do I go from here to make this happen, to make it a reality?
Yeah, I think you should probably be working with Joe over at the Center for Urban Families, because he's tied into a lot of that stuff and he's doing great work over there. I don't have Joe's number in this phone, but I can get you in contact with him. You know, he's like, he has his hand on the pulse of a lot of those things that's going on, and he can help point you in even if you're your own entity. You know, just one of those people who just, if you want to help, you know, let's get together and play ball. We can make it happen.
So as the dude from Baltimore and several other intersections of life, your identities that you probably have, I'm curious about your analysis of the Port Covington and all of that whole piece for Baltimore.
That's an easy one. Money talks. Money wins. Money wins. If we want to heal any problems, any of the social ills that affect our communities, then we have to make money. If you make money, those conversations don't come up. You know, it's like anything else. The person who writes the checks in this country is normally the person that wins, probably except the Yankees.
My question is more of, I want to know how, so the first thing is to acknowledge the problem, and then the second is to look for solutions and know what to do, right? But how do you help people? I'm assuming a lot of people were nodding while you're speaking, so they acknowledge the problem. And this is a good turnout, but I'm a little bit disappointed. Like, we've heard about this event for a very long time, and the source has been sending an email like almost every day. Why aren't there more people here that do not even acknowledge the problem? I'm in a department, and I can assure you I can only see one person from my department, for example. And like I come to the school angry every day because I feel like this bubble is only getting, the walls of this bubble are only getting thicker. And even though I want to make a change and I go out there to the community, I feel like I want to have more people involved with me. And so how do we help more people to acknowledge the problem first? Because telling them what to do, and like if they don't even have, comprehend what's happening, then as you said, they're just in our way. So how do you help people to acknowledge the problem?
Thank you, that was brave. The first thing I would say is we have to acknowledge that some people attend this college because it looks good on the resume and they can get a job. Some people really don't care. So if a person doesn't care, you can't spend your time trying to make them care. The best thing you can do is spend your time and energy connecting with people that care in the way you care, and then giving those resources or using that to support or bring up somebody who hasn't had the experiences that like me and you were as fortunate enough to have. I treat it like that because I can't, no one dreams, there's no little kid out there, you know, who's going to bed every night and praying to God that one day they can grow up and be a horrible teacher. But it happens, right? It happens. Probably the same thing. It's the same thing with police officers. I don't think people join the police force to kill unarmed people. Like, I mean, I would like to, I don't think so. I would hope not. But we can't waste time and energy on what they want to do. Because if they don't care, then they're just not going to care. It's like being in that relationship 2 years too long. You knew the relationship was over in 2014. You know, why you try to drag it out to why you try to make it to Thanksgiving 2016? You know it's not working. So it's like but that's a good thing too, because it's dead weight. So, you know, if you came to Hopkins, the School of Public Health, because it's ranked and, you know, it's respected all over the globe, and you just want that as like, you know, a stepping stone for another part of your life, that's perfectly okay. It's good, it's fine. But that shouldn't affect you. You figure out the impact you can have, and you aggressively attack it. You know, Harriet Tubman, think freed almost like close to 300 slaves. And she said she could have freed 1,000 if they knew they were slaves. Some people just don't know, and some people just don't care, but that can affect you. Because these people don't care, and they won't care. And then some of them, and what's worse is the ones that fake care. Oh, I care so much. Let's go out for drinks. you know, so I would just, I feel your pain, but I used to be that person to challenge other people. And then one day I said, you know what? This is my journey. This is my life. I'm responsible for doing what I can do. I can't control another person. I can't make them see or envision what I see and envision even for them. And I've been more effective like that than I've been when I tried to understand people who are like, false prophets and phony and fake. Like, because it's a waste of time.
Okay. So I'm not going to ask the what do I do as a nice white person question, because I'm over that too.
You got to twirl your head.
But like, what can I do? No, I'm over that as well. But as someone, so I'm from Baltimore too, and sitting through even the orientation here at Hopkins and some of the conversations here about what Baltimore is like, Admitted Students Day, trying to convince people to come to Baltimore. The way Baltimore is framed here and in a lot of conversations around the city is through a negative lens, a lens of this is a problem, we have to respond to the uprising, we are the wire, like all of that stuff this is Baltimore and you have to deal with it and kind of convince people otherwise. So the good stuff isn't really presented as much to people. The people on the street that you say hi to, the community that you have, really what makes Baltimore is not presented in that way. So knowing that people don't really see Baltimore in that way, how would you kind of share that vision of Baltimore, that reality of Baltimore? Because the way it's presented to people isn't through a lens of Baltimore's a problem, the people are a problem.
I think I do it in my conversation. I have a public audience, people that read me and follow me and stuff like that, and I acknowledge the good and the bad. This whole idea of just telling the whole story, not just little like bits and pieces and trying to sensationalize in different ways. I think those people, like at the orientation, they have a job. Their job is to sell. They study ways to sell you on making sure you would want to, well, you're from here, but the people who they're trying to get in, they study ways to get them excited about coming to the city. But I try my best to tell the whole truth about the city. I didn't meet white people until I turned like 18, 19 years old. Like, it was no white people in East Baltimore, except for like housing police and maybe a couple teachers, but like actually in the community, like there was zero. So, but that's Baltimore. So if you're coming to town, you should know that. You should also know that Johns Hopkins University, they tell their students don't go past Barclay Street, or not even Barclay Street. Don't go past, oh my God, Guilford? Oh, no, they probably moved it now. They gentrified a little bit. It might, I think Hopkins students are allowed to go to the Giants. But, you know, so we had to tell the whole truth. There's some beautiful neighborhoods where all types of people live. There's some really, really white neighborhoods, some really, really black neighborhoods, and then, you know, there's some neighborhoods that just stink. You know, so I think the best thing we can do is to tell the whole story. If there's things you love about this city, talk about it. The things you don't like, talk about it too. But it's about telling the whole story. Because, you know, as long as Baltimore remains as segregated as it is, you know, we all suffer. We all suffer. Like, we all suffer. Like, nobody wins under that type of, under the way it is right now.
So my question is, as someone who seems to be part of two communities, distinctly part of the East Baltimore community where you've been oppressed and you understand their frustrations, and then also kind of transitioning to this Hopkins community, you realize you're in a place of privilege, and it seems like you're putting so much out that there's always problems and it's kind of never ending. Like you said, it may take 250 years. So how do you kind of replenish yourself to continue doing this work when a lot of times it's disheartening? Like the Black Lives Matter movement had the 2 weeks of bloodshed. And how do you continue to navigate in this Hopkins or this very privileged space as someone who has also been kind of in that space of being underprivileged? How do you manage being part of both of those communities? And then I guess my subsequent question is, knowing that both of those are a reality, how do you continue to do the work that you do?
You know, so for me, Hopkins is a great place to come and pick checks up at. It's, you know, it's cool, but you know, when it comes to work, like I work for the next generation. Like I work for kids, like for young people. So I can't not push towards solutions. Like I can't come up with new plans. I can't create a plan, see it working, watch it fall apart, and then walk away. I gotta rebuild, I gotta reboot, I gotta start fresh. I'll never change a goal. I just alter the plans. And I have to continue that like forever, because it's beyond me. Like, you know, I'm fortunate, you know, I've been through the streets, I've been shot, I've been through pretty much anything, you know, you probably seen on any hood movie. I've had these experiences, and now I have an opportunity to you know, I can live in some, you know, some different cities, or I can live in some nice places. I just choose not to, because now I'm the same person, but I have resources, and I'm responsible for, you know, you can't build a nation if you're running out to wherever to live. Like, you know, so I work, that's my goal. You know, my goal isn't to, but you know, it does get, you know, there's some dark nights, and it gets sad, and you know, but you can't stop. You have to just you have to remember who you work for. I'm a server, I'm an employee, you know, I work for people, I serve them.
Folks, we're going to not end the event. We're going to have one more question and transition the event into the book sale and signing. So one question here, and then we'll transition over.
Thank you. Thanks for an amazing talk. I'm from Canada, and other than our different allegiance to baseball teams today, I think we have a lot of similarities in the problems that we face. And one of the tools that I really wanted to hear you talk about is the arts. You know, I think we forget about the power of music and the spoken word and the written word to make action. And as a writer, I wanted to hear your thoughts on how we can harness that energy.
So, you know, Baltimore has one of the most respected and amazing thriving art scenes ever. It's so amazing. It's even better than Canada. Like, you know, there's so much going on. And so what I've done, or what I've been trying to do and been working on, and I had some success at putting the most popular rap artists and spoken word artists in schools. So, you know, so kids can understand not just the lyrics they hear on the song, but the artistry that went into creating those lyrics. How do you go about trying to get a record deal? How do you go about how do you make a career out of it? What other careers are affiliated with music and art, and, well, you know, with art in general? So I've done that. And as far as for myself, the written word is, you know, I make visits to Baltimore City Public Schools almost every week. Schools all over Baltimore City are reading the B-side or the cook-up. And that means the world to me because, you know, like reading and writing basically changed my life. I was, you know, I think before I became a reader, I think I was dead. You know, the only things that I knew was things that, you know, people or television told me. I didn't have my own ideas. I was full of other people's ideas. So I know that reading opened my mind up and challenged me to think and be brave and bold and do so many different things. And I feel like that's inside of everybody if they read. How do you do that? You create content that gets them excited about reading. You create content that they can see themselves in, content that will make them get excited about telling their own story and seeing the value in the places they come from. So I'm like, that's a major big component of the type of activism that I subscribe to is creating a nation of thinkers. You know, people who can come up with their own ideas. So it's the arts is everything. It's the answer for me. And you know it's effective because so many people are trying to cut it out. So, you know, every time you see something work, every time you see something working, the budget trimmers come out. Oh my God, that's effective. Let's get rid of Jim. Like,
All right, T, thank you so very much.
Thank you.